So first of all, hello to each and every one of you that took the time out of your busy day to join us for another Flycast Partners presentation. Most of you already know me. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host. Today's webinar is Track-It Tips and Tricks presented by Stephen Rast. Now, the tips and tricks that are being shared today are ones that you, the audience, sent to us and your biggest challenges and the forms that you filled out for this webinar today. So a lot of you are going to get some of the answers that you were looking for. And for those of you that don't, well, there's always info@flycastpartners.com, or simply pick up the phone and call us at 844-FLYCAST. But Stephen is an IT service management SE with almost 25 years of experience. During this time, he has been a trainer, consultant, and worked in support center environments. 19 years of his career was spent with BMC Software in many customer-centric roles. So Stephen has worked with many types of IT tools over the last 25 years and has watched them evolve firsthand. He started with Flycast Partners about a year ago and has helped out with numerous products that we offer here at Flycast. So before we get started, Stephen, let me introduce Flycast Partners to those folks that have never heard of us before, and I know we have a couple on today's presentation. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training on ITSM, ITAM, and workload automation spaces using ITIL best practices. Our professional services can easily scale up or down in order to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on your normal day-to-day operations, saving you time and money. Please visit our website, if you haven't already, at www.flycastpartners.com, or call us direct at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. I encourage you to check out our website for various offerings and webinars that are coming up, and industry white papers and data sheets. And as you can see, next week we're attacking data. We have where are you in control of your workload automation? We have introduction to digital enterprise management. We're doing a footprints for higher learning. For those of you that already have Track-It and may be considering that footprints option, this would be a great presentation for you. So sign up for yourself. Invite some of your coworkers. The more the merrier. As we can already see today, we fill these up quite frequently, and we encourage to have as many folks join us for an education as want to be with us. And with that being said, I'm going to start turning this presentation over to Stephen, and thank all of you for joining us from all over North America. Stephen, I've given the power over to you, sir.
Well, like Rich said, he introduced myself. I'm Stephen Rast. I'm a sales engineer here with Flycast, and I'll only admit to 25 years experience. After that, I deny everything. Various products over those years, and in several different careers, both in support and SE work and working with different products. So pretty good depth of knowledge across different industries. Getting to love Track-It more and more. Based on the notes that I saw in the responses, love the sarcastic replies. That helps me gauge the audience and get to understand really what people need out of the product and out of these presentations. A lot of what I saw was understanding what Track-It does, how can I get more out of Track-It, where do I find and do things better with it? And a lot of that I really understand, because when we often engage with clients and they're working on ITSM and their environment, they have a few simple things they're trying to track and do with a product. You know, I want to do better my incident management or change management or anything along those lines. And that's your primary goal and focus, and you get the product in and you satisfy those needs, and then sometimes you have to come back and revisit and go, what more can I do? So let's start with a foundation of what's in Track-It and what you can do with it. So inventory and discovery, very key. You know, we're always going to know who the audience is who's calling us, but more important sometimes is what are you calling about? Is it that phone? Is it that laptop, that desktop? What application is it? Software license management just kind of dovetails into that. We know what's out there. We know what's installed. Let's better manage our license and usage of those costs that occur with IT. Now, procurement or purchasing, also another key component. Very simple, straightforward process in there. I saw a few questions about purchasing in the notes, and we'll try and address those. But it's a great way to create a request that really may go outside of IT. It may be going to a company you deal with to get equipment, or it may be going to another internal department so that you can track your requests that are going over to a financial office or somebody who's ordering the equipment on your behalf. Help desk, of course, is that break fix, get them back up and running type of requesting. Solutions, knowledge. A great way to leverage what is in the heads of your technicians, get it published, but give it to your end users in a consumable format so that really they shouldn't have to call you. They can go in, find this answer just as they would if they were going out and Googling it, but in a controlled manner, what you put out there. Change management, and in Track-It, that's really requesting and authorization. You know, what's come in and what needs to get authorized to be done. So the training module and the library modules, great. I think I saw only 1 or 2 questions out there on what they do. Reporting and dashboarding, definitely had a lot of hits on that. That's always key. There's a lot of reports that are provided out of the box, but anything that's canned is probably not really going to suit your needs. You may need to go in and tweak a field or two or modify some variables to get the information formatted the way you want. End user and self-service. That's definitely a way to get more interactivity with your requesters. A lot of times it's a matter of how you can make it available to them so that they don't have to just email you or ambush you in the hall or anything along those lines. The web portal for technicians gets away from some of the issues that people have with the client. You know, having that thick client can be a little burdensome on some systems, whereas with the web portal, your technicians have pretty much 98% of the same thing they can do in the client in the web portal. And then, of course, mobile for technicians. If you've got technicians who are going out and about covering a campus, a facility, have to be on the go, that gives them a thumb-ready way to access the requesting and manage it so that you don't have a lot of delays with getting requests put in. I saw several people in the comments who had issues where they're not getting logged the activity that they need. You know, things are getting taken care of, the end user's getting their request fulfilled, but not getting it tracked in to Track-It makes it for a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. And then there were a couple items on remote control, barcode, and survey, which are add-ons. So not part of the initial license, but feature functionality that you may want to look at for, you know, getting feedback from your install base with the survey or being able to remotely access somebody's system. A lot of times I see people are using other tools that are out there, BombGuard and so forth. Great tools, definitely have their place and are easy to use also. Some of the highlights since 11, so there's been a lot of modifications going on. Again, the mobile and the inventory, the time tracking, being able to stop the clock with SLAs, which I think there were a couple SLA questions that we may try and cover, new password resets and the templates and so forth, all very beneficial. A lot of this information, a lot of the new feature functionality that comes into the product is brought forward by you, the customer, getting in contact with BMC. We'll go over that a little bit, but again, implementation and usage, and what more can you do with Track-It? The end user understanding of IT process, that came up in a couple different requests, and we'll address that. Change management got a lot of hits, getting text to record the work, and of course, reporting. Make sure you're familiar with your resources, the Track-It.com, help, and the communities. They're always available because they're always right there in the application. So whenever you're doing something and you want to get to communities, it's really a click away. And if you're not already involved in communities, make sure you get signed up for and involved in this. This is a great way for you to voice features, functionality, things you're wondering about in the product. There's also a lot of knowledge shared that goes on out here. How somebody does something or how something's been done in the past is all part of it. You also have, of course, at any point in time, the help for getting to Track-It.com, and then the BMC help, which gives you access to the documentation. You know, this is the online documentation, everything that's currently installed in the product. And with Track-It.com, you've got access to a lot of the resources that give you additional documentation, setup, configuration. Some of the videos, these are short, little 5-minute videos, except for a couple of the overviews. They cover kind of everything in Track-It at a high level. So with that, let's jump in and we'll work on a couple of these topics. Implementation. Everybody's probably already gone through this at least once. Be getting started. Make sure you've gone through, set and configured a lot of what needs to be done, getting everything up and configured. But a lot of it you're probably used to afterwards in the console. I saw several questions about, you know, setting up and configuring parts of the things that should be done in the console. So making sure you've got basic settings configured. It's always a good idea to revisit these and make sure everything's set correctly. You know, you did it at one point in time, but, you know, there may need to be some adjustments over time. Configuring email seemed to be another element of it. I saw a lot of questions that came in about how to set up, not necessarily the email itself, but processes behind the email of what happens when something comes in, when it gets into the system, seemed to be one of the areas where people were having some issues. And it may be one where you want to set up some of your policies based on the email that comes in. If somebody's really kind of taking it out of the queue once it's in, filtering it and getting it applied, that may be one of the elements that a lot of people look at to go, where is it coming in? How are we reacting to it? You know, it should be creating that initial work order for you immediately, but a lot of times you need somebody to look at it and go, okay, what is this concerning? And read a little bit more into what's been described by the end user. Solutions, definitely one of the keys. Getting that knowledge out there for the end users to hopefully deflect the call can be very key to decreasing the call volume that comes in and allowing you to have more time to respond with those calls that are probably a little more impactful if they've had to call. versus, how do I print something or how do I connect to something? If you've got a good knowledge article out there, well written, that should deflect a lot of the calls in your environment. Setting up your change management, getting it configured. Again, inside Track-It, change is what are the requests, the work orders that need authorization. So you build those in here. So like laptop purchase gives me the way to define when a request comes in, meets the defining criteria of type hardware, subtype laptop, category purchase, then we're going to sequentially process these approvers for the approval of this request. It could also be non-sequential, simultaneous, but it depends on the type and nature of the request and how you need to get it through your business organization. Decision due dates and times, do we override operating hours? Makes sense in an approval process. I could get it approved off hours by somebody versus having requests be 7/24, defining the approvers, number of approvers required, and then, of course, what notifications do they get when they happen. Pretty streamlined, simple process to build on, and start with some of the ones that are very frequent in your environment, because those are the easiest ones to capture your learning and get some experience with how they're going to flow. So, notification templates, I'm sure everybody's kind of looked at these. Canned notifications are good. You may want to personalize them a little more. As I always point out, these things are oftentimes written by tech-savvy people who are great at writing code, may not have the interpersonal relationship skills you want to express from your service desk. Your automated schedules of when it's checking and monitoring your environment. Now, I've got mine rolled down to a very tight frequency, not typical of a production environment. Inventory, again, big time, getting it set up, getting it configured the first time correctly makes things a lot easier when you're defining how you're sweeping. Are you doing it by domain? Are you doing it by IP address, OU? What are your schedules and frequencies so that you're capturing as assets are on the environment and updated? There were a couple responses that I noted. People talked about certain things lacking or not necessarily trusting their inventory seemed to be a big element of it. One of the things I always make sure is, like I said, go back and revisit this information. Make sure you've got all your IP ranges and subnets included so that you're making sure to gather everything. If you feel something's missing, check those ranges to make sure that they're incorporated in the list. Again, IP ranges, subnets do oftentimes change in environments, so it may have slipped that something didn't get included or updated into Track-It, and that may be why you're seeing issues. If it goes beyond that, there were a couple items that people posted that I think you're really going to have to kind of call support on and dig into it with them where you're feeling the lack of comfort in the information that's being brought to you. So, and of course, once you've got that sweep of information, your audits, making sure that that's pulling in all the data you want, capturing it, what's your frequency, again, not realistically set up here to inventory every day. How are you getting notified and when are your audits scheduled? Again, trying to pick an off impactful time frame is very key. You don't want it when people are necessarily signing in first thing. So if you can stage it sometimes later in the morning or later in the afternoon to capture, can help to make sure that everything's out there and responsive. again, giving us your credentials and criteria are very helpful. And again, making sure that's updated. If you've had any admin password changes, information like that, very beneficial to make sure you revisit this. And again, that covers a lot of the basic initial setup, getting the who in there, getting all the Active Directory connections so that you're pulling in the vast majority of your users is also very key. Making sure that's all set up. That way, if you have to add somebody, it should be on a minimal type of response. So now once we've got some of that baseline information in, and we're getting everything configured and reporting and recording it, usage is one of the other key elements that people are talking about. Like I said, you may have initially bought needing one set of goals to be met, but you can oftentimes look around the organization and go, well, there are other parts of the organization sometimes that need request management. We oftentimes see in organizations IT as an entry point, and then HR becomes another add-on point because they're handling requests. Requests the same as what you're dealing with. End user needs some information or access or something changed in their environment, whether it be a laptop or desktop, or maybe it's something like a benefits package or dependent enrollment, so that those requests can be easily created and spun off to the group so that they can, again, track who's requesting it and their response. Facilities, depending on the nature of your environment. I noticed a lot of educational affiliates in the list. We see that often spreading out where it's IT, it's building and facilities management, also that are having to deal with requesting. So that can help spawn more usage of the application in the environment, but there's also using it for IT. It shouldn't just be break-fix requesting. It should also benefit the end user, especially with self-service, with knowledge, and requesting that can be accessible to them without having to wait in a phone queue or even having to do an email to get it to you. End user understanding of the IT process. There were several comments in the notes about people who I guess are trying to get the end user to understand what it is IT is doing with this application. And there is a great divide that has occurred over the last, well, really over the last 10 years that has not helped IT's image, because people use smart devices and they can't understand why, well, I can go out with my phone and go to, the App Store or Marketplace and I can download an app and get that installed. But when I come to the office, there's a breakdown in that level of communication. I have processes that are sometimes archaic or very difficult to deal with. Well, again, if you can kind of modernize the IT look by giving your end users a self-service type interface where they can go and do their self-service information, that's very helpful. That's also a great way to get really better interaction with the end users. Let me log in here. So that they can have access to the tools you want them. Knowledge, looking at putting in new requests, looking at their asset information, things like that that are very helpful for them. But again, kind of helps that this is easily accessible, and also for your technicians when they're out and doing something, having a tool, there we go, bring that down to their aspect ratio, where they can be mobile with it. Very helpful. So when we reapproach understanding what your processes are in IT, there are a couple good documents out there on communities that talk about how you can kind of idle align, track it to the ITIL processes. Sometimes that's very beneficial if you illustrate those processes for your end users. You know, show them what the workflow logic is when a request comes in, so that they can be much more aware of understanding how you have to handle and how you have to prioritize requests. Just a great way to get them a little more involved in understanding what's the behind the scenes. One of the next elements that came up frequently was change management. So let's go through and I'm going to have to log myself back in. Here we go. Log out. Log in. There we go. And I do most of my stuff from the thick client because of doing admin functionality. Guess it helps if I log out here too. There we go. And we're back in. Okay, so from help desk, like I said, change management and Track-It takes the approach of it's a work order request, but it has to have an approval process. So if I come in and create a new work order, who's the requester? So again, I'll pick on Ben. You'll see me use these drop downs. That's just kind of out of demo response. The reality is most oftentimes people, you know who's calling, you'll type in the name. And we'll put in once new laptop. So to get the policy for change to be effective, I have to identify this. So it was a hardware request for a laptop and a purchase. Now, when I save, of course, it gives me my notification that we're now entering a change, fires that off, and begins the change management policy being applied to it. So, well, Ben wants a new laptop, great. We've got to get authorization from these people for that to happen. So, of course, I get an email, I can respond to the email and authorize it that way. It makes it very easy. Of course, there are a couple other ways to do approvals, but that way you can start the process and keep it contained very quickly and efficiently. Start always, I recommend, with some of the simpler processes. New equipment, access to applications or environments, things like that that are very standard in an environment before you ever try and tackle something that's much larger, like a new hire and an onboarding process. There's an example, of course, in the demo environment data that gives you an onboarding process, but that's a lot more parts moving through any of these processes because it's now using templates and change requests to bring everything together. This one was interesting, getting the techs to record their work. And I'm actually working with another client who is in the process of looking at implementing a telephony system to help with the recording of all the work orders that they're dealing with. And I hope to be able to, at some point in time, demo this in a webinar because of the way we can link into a telephony system for them and may bring some additional benefit to other Track-It customers. So, but one of the things of making techs record their information is making it easy. And again, doing things possibly with the mobile interface is much easier for some of the technicians. I've got a great friend who works with a lot of interns and trainees, and he's found that he has to send them a text to tell them to look at their email. And I think it's kind of a generational thing. We're all probably more brought up on focusing on email as a great way to communicate, whereas younger people, no, they're used to a mobile device, and if it's a text that tells them to do something, they're more likely to see it and respond to it than an email that comes in that they'll visit later. So again, giving them the tools, giving them the mobile interface to be able to access it, giving them the web interface. I think the response time on the web is much faster than on the thick client for a lot of the requesting. So it's much easier for me as a technician to come in and look at something, and again, I've locked myself. No, I'm in. Let me log back in. Log in, deal with the same form, information, details. I get a much quicker response out of the web interface than I do with a thick client and some of the refreshing. So make sure if you've got people who are just using the thick client, you may want to look at enabling the web client in your environment to give them something that's a little quicker and easier to use with their desktop. Capturing all that information. Again, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's easy to pick up the phone and just answer the question versus, going in and creating a new work order. But, once they understand that, yes, it needs to be done, even if it takes you a second or two, you'll be able to quickly learn how to go in and put in the end user's information, tab through it so that you can capture everything quickly and efficiently, and start that recording process. All right. I want to make sure everybody's really kind of familiar with the form itself. I know I kind of jumped through this rather quickly, but, of course, requester, their information, any of the assets that are associated to them, or the assets they might be calling about. So, what's their laptop, their desktop, anything like that. But if they're calling about a particular service, a business process that you have, that can also be part of your asset inventory. So it's not just a hard physical, but it can be virtual assets. Prioritization, life cycle status, where is it from open to close and all the steps in between. Your note, gathering information here, the resolution as it comes to one, of course, billing fields, and a lot of people have already modified some of the user-defined fields, lookup tables, text to meet specific needs. Attachments, screenshots, error messages, any kind of log file that needs to be part of what's recorded. Your classification schedule, and this rolls kind of directly into the next topic, which is reporting. When you think about how you're building your classification, think about what you want to see on a report. I took X number of calls over this Y time frame about Z being the type, the subtypes, and even the categories. So think about what best lays out that information when you're looking at those classification schedules. Requester information in detail, and hopefully you've got, good information on your clients coming in through AD or some other source. Photos, that's nice. I know a lot of people don't have those in. The asset information, so what user and what's associated to them. Assignments, of course, would be, is there any things assigned to them, tasks, work orders, subordinate work orders, change if it was part of this request, and it is, what are the approvals we're waiting for, and audit trail, what's been done over time with any of these requests. One of the elements that I see also in the notes that are people looking to enhance is work orders with templates. So if I'm in here and I need to use a template, I can come in here and go to my actions and select template like a new hire or password reset assistance, where that helps accelerate the call taking process so that as a technician I'm not having to type in and fill in as many fields, because I can use the template to help do that and get the information in here. So again, we'll pick on Ben today. Capture his information, and begin with that template. Again, that one's not filled out as robustly as some others, but you can have a lot of information in there for the common calls, the ones you get pretty much every day or at a high frequency on at least a weekly, monthly rate. Make sure you've got those in as templates to help accelerate that call-taking process. Reporting was another big element that came up. I've got a request out to one of our internal people who knows more about reporting than anybody I've ever met, getting some of her perspective on recommendations. Since this reporting is in here and it's based on Crystal Developer, there are a couple different third-party publications that I would recommend that if you're looking to learn how to do more with Crystal that you can access, you can go in and of course, redevelop these reports, modify the reports to build out what you need. But also don't forget to go into communities and ask, the product managers for Track-It are looking at a lot of the responses that go in to communities to be able to enable new feature functionality with the upcoming releases and the new functionality that they're trying to provide. So if it's of a nature that can be supported and it's something that's usable by a vast majority of people, that definitely gets looked at in what they can add to any of the requests. But I know people sometimes make fun of it, but there used to be a really good Crystals for Dummies publication out there that was, to me, it was much better than the Crystal manual that was included. And then I think Osborne is the other company that publishes some really good books on Crystal so that you can further educate yourself on what more you can do with the Crystal edition that comes with it, or if you have any of the professional editions or enterprise editions of Crystal in your organization, what more you can do to get details out of the reports, make sure they're easily modified to meet your needs, and your requirements. Looking back at the notes and information that you provided in your biggest challenges, again, I see a lot about people who are starting up, what they need, some people who are self-implementing, which I'm not a big fan of, not that you can't do it, but I think having sometimes the expertise of having done it again and again and again lends itself to making sure you have a very mature, stable setup to begin with. I know that's not financially capable for all end users. There were a couple items in here that I think you need to, definitely some of the users need to make sure they get in contact with support directly. There were a couple requests here, challenges that seem to be very peculiar in the nature of what they were having to deal with. So with that, Rich, I think I would like to go ahead and open up the line so we can get some feedback from our audience and maybe handle some Q&A.
Well, folks, if you have any additional questions other than what he's already gone over, now's the time for you to go ahead and type those in, and we'll try and answer as many of those as we can. This is the first time that we've been able to do that on a Track-It Tips and Tricks webinar, so let's take advantage of the fact that we have Stephen here today. So if you have a question, go ahead and send it to us. Stephen, there's a newer version of Track-It that's supposed to be coming out soon. Do you know what the release date, or have you heard what the release date is on that?
I have not heard an affirmative release date yet. I'm expecting that we'll be hearing that shortly based on the conversations that I've had with product management and development. And yes, that is a new version of Track-It. It's going to be called Track-It 2017. And within that new release, there are some major architectural enhancements that are going to be happening to the product. Track-It hasn't seen a major architectural change, I think, in the last 6 years. So with that opportunity, BMC looked at it and said, what more can we do with the product within some of the guidelines that they have to do things to really mature the product, give it more life in the industry. It's had a rich history, really probably pretty close to 20 plus years now too, but seeing that continue, hopefully for the next 20 years or more, would be great. You know, we're all waiting for the day that artificial intelligence takes care of all our help desk requesting, but it's not there yet. It's going to be a new platform, and with that new platform means it's not going to be necessarily an upgrade. You're not going to go from Track-It 11.4 SP1 and jump into 2017. It's going to be a data migration more than an upgrade.
Okay. Now, we do have our first question from Johnny. Johnny asks, I saw a web-based version of Track-It. Is there a link so we can access it and close it from anywhere?
Oh, you're talking about the web interface, I think, Johnny? Yes, depending on where your web service is installed. So in my environment, I've got it virtualized, so I'm not having to deal with DMZs or anything. But if your environment allows you to, and you can configure it so that the web services, the IIS, is hosted somewhere in a DMZ and secured, then yes, it doesn't have to be something I'd have to VPN in to log into the web interface to be able to access and close. So that's more of a, where is the IIS server hosted to make it accessible so that your technicians could be doing it literally, yes, from anywhere and kind of from, you know, any device if you want to.
Okay, great question, Johnny. If there's any other questions, now's the time, folks. In the Q&A section of this webinar, go ahead and type in your question, or in the chat, even the chat section. If you have a question that he hasn't already addressed by answering some of the biggest challenges, this is your time to ask, and why not ask live, right? If you're feeling a little bashful today, I understand. You can simply send your questions to info@flycastpartners.com or call us direct at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, and we'll make sure that you get an answer right away. We have a question from Frank coming in right now. So is this solution on-premise only, or can it be in the cloud? Great question.
Very good question. The answer is yes. So yeah, you can install this locally on your server environment, or if you wanted to and you wanted to do it cloud-based, you could stand it up in like Amazon Web Services. You know, it's just a matter of you procuring the right environment with them and installing it in the cloud at that point in time, which gives you a lot of security, accessibility, and capability with the product. But again, that's up to you as to how it's done. I think AWS is a great environment because of the security and the nature of their install environment and the redundancy that they have in place. Makes for a perfect environment for it. A little bit of extra cost, but a lot of benefit of not having to maintain those servers yourself.
Okay, our questions are rolling in now, Stephen, so I'm going to fire at you here. Roman wants to know how to force users to type replies and answers instead to modify or highlight existing conversation that they receive in emails from the Track-It system.
Oh, okay, repeat that one more time, Rich. How to
force users to type replies/answers instead to modify or highlight existing conversation that they receive emails from Track-It system.
Oh, that one we may have to take offline. I think I understand what you're asking is when somebody's replying back to an email, that they may be modifying that email and taking out some of the components that help handle the conversation management. Sometimes that's just really a training issue that you're going to have to sit down and make sure they understand here's how to best communicate back and forth with IT, and not modifying some of the body or the principal tags that are in those conversation management tools is very key to it. But yeah, that's a hard one to get people to reply properly.
Okay, and the next question comes from Holly. In the library, is there a way to generate a history report for an item or multiple items to see a trend?
Oh, in the reports for library. There are only a couple reports. To do trending, Holly, that takes a little outside data work because you have to be able to take the information and capture it at the appropriate time frames, whether it be weekly, monthly, quarterly, or whatever, and have that data stored to then apply and look at your trending metrics and build on it, so that you have to have the captured data to analyze against and the data that's current that you're analyzing for to see if your trends are up, improving, or whatever. That would really be one of the things I would probably want to take, and Rich, I'd take that and would hand that over to Rosemary, because with her crystal background and skills, she knows better than I or anybody else how to do trending reports and analysis. Because those are, I won't say it's super advanced level crystal processes, but it does take some data setup and configuration so that you can build those time frames.
So Holly, if you want to email that question to me at rich.longo@flycastpartners.com, I will make sure that we get our team to reach out to our other consultant, Rosemary, and get a better answer for you, and we'll get that answer for you in the next 5 business days and get back to you. So go ahead and email me direct at rich.longo@flycastpartners.com, and we'll get that answered for you appropriately. Another question comes from Angela. Can you attach more than one document as an attachment at a time to a work order? As of right now, we've been attaching one document at a time to a work order.
I haven't really tested that. It sounds like you're not talking about inbounding the request, but actually, if I'm in a request and I want to attach something, let's see, we'll go desktop.
And while Stephen's pulling that up, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to send them to us at info@flycastpartners.com or to me directly at rich.longo@flycastpartners.com, or call us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. I put that in the chat window for you. We will get an answer for you within the next 5 business days. We'll make sure that we get that answered for you. By all means, send us your questions.
Yeah, that looks like it's singular attachment, not being able to attach multiple files, because when I hit any of the common keystrokes that I would expect for attaching multiple, it's only allowing one. So I'm not seeing any way to do multiples at this point in time. Again, that's something we may have to go to communities and see if that's been requested before. If it is out there, it may be proposed as an idea, and hopefully something that's coming in the new version, a capability to do that. If not, vote it up. Make your voice be heard. All right.
Okay, Stephen, I think we've reached the end of our time. Actually, we're a little bit over, but it was great getting some of these extra questions answered. Once again, I want to remind everybody, if you do have further questions, we are more than happy to get those answers for you. So please go ahead and email us at info@flycastpartners.com. Reach out, 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Thank all of you for all of your biggest challenges that you sent to us this week. Thank you for your time, taking time out of your very busy day. And Stephen, I want to thank you for taking time to teach us a little bit more about Track-It.
Oh, very welcome. I love it.
All right, folks. Enjoy the rest of your week, and don't freeze out there. We know it's pretty cold across the country. And until next time.